read several emails when I got these numbers, so I had more to kind of play with. That's where I got the differences.
And is there an underlying assumption that the revenue that's generated would necessarily need to yield more employees? Underlying, is there?
No, the need to yield more employees is to keep up with the short-term rentals.
Okay.
That's where the more employees, you need one person doing nothing but just checking short-term rentals. I mean, their whole job would be just like on the computer, checking VRBO, Airbnb, making sure that everybody who's renting has got a license, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So
the other group would be working evenings, weekends, days, rotating, yielding calls, livability calls, noise, trash, parking, all that kind of stuff.
All right, so it's the numbers. I have no problem with fees. I have no problem if I have to yield to the exact amount, but presently I don't have a problem with the number that's in our document.
Okay. Mr. Folly?
I have no problem with increasing fees. I would like to see some scenarios developed that include some of the things Mr. Rich talked about, or if we looked at a sliding fee based on bedrooms. And if we also figure out what the number is that perhaps will come up in recommendation 5, what our staff is, what we'll need, and back into that number. But I'd like to see some scenarios, but yes, fees should pay for that.
Mr. Ellis?
I agree that we need a staff on this issue. I'm not sure how many, 4 might be, I'm thinking possibly too much. A full-time employee is quite a commitment to somebody about. So again, on there, I'm just kind of watching, see how the issue develops. But in a general sense, I do agree we need to add staff. Second is, I think that the fees structure as written is regressive in nature, 2 to 4% people, because they're limited to the number of days they can rent. And so it sets them at an unfair disadvantage to the people that can rent all year long. And I think it also affects them differently because there are the small guy, especially the 4%er that maintains presence on the property when people come staying, like the downstairs room off of one of those rental.
Well,
People
that's
sleep.
a whole different process. That would be called a bed and breakfast. So you're in a whole different ballgame. It's not short-term rentals. So bed and breakfast is, if you're gonna live there and just rent a room out for a bed and breakfast, that's a whole different set of rules and regulations.
I understand.
Well, I'm just saying, so
Yeah,
that,
no,
so don't get
thanks
them
for
mixed
pointing
up with
that out.
short-term rentals.
Thanks for pointing that out. So as far as the 4%ers that vacate the property when they rent less than 72 days a year, I maintain that the fee structure is regressive against them because they're limited to 72 days by South Carolina state law. So, I mean, that's my opinion. I would support the increase for the 6%, but I would probably suggest, see if I can get 3 other votes to amend, once this is in the ordinance form, the 4%er 1,000 annual down to 500. That's what I would do. So
what I'm hearing out there is people are okay, I think, with creating a division or a program or something, whatever you want to name it, to help regulate and make this accountable to the city and to the residents. What I've heard all as well is that the $1,000 and $2,000 is too much. Either a per bedroom, because again, some people rent out a 1 bedroom, or I think it's Save Folly's Future presented as a % of revenue from prior year. So that's an idea. So if you are a 4%er, you only rent it 72 days and you made $6,000, then you doing a percentage of that. 2 or 3%, I think you recommended, or something of that sort, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. That way, somebody that only does it for a week or 2 weeks out of the
Well,
year,
you-
they pay a percentage instead of a flat rate.
Okay, so now we're down to, everybody wants to mix this one in, putting in a staff. So what we need to do, if we're gonna put in a staff to do this, it will take at least 4 people. And the reason I say that is because, like I said, you got one person that's gonna be doing mostly accounting work. You got 3 other people that's gonna have to cover shifts, holidays, weekends, some nights, 4 to 12s, whatever. Or that's when you get a lot of calls for problems with noise and that kind of stuff. Okay.
Okay, so
So
you changed my mind
so
on that.
2.3 is the recommendation for short-term rental related issues, adding staff. And we'll start with Mr. Grooms, since you were kind of starting off last time.
As I mentioned before, I'm okay with creating a administration for that.
So, you kind of changed my mind a little bit about the numbers now that I look at it from the perspective of a rotating shift structure.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Farmer,
I agree.
Dr. Alvin,
Yes,
Mr. Rich. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Barker.
Okay, yes,
He was leaning forward. I didn't see you behind.
we'll need more staff, clearly.
Mr. Rich.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can we come back to 2.1 and 2.2? We skipped over.
Oh, I skipped over 2.2, yeah, excuse me. So 2.1, we kind of beat out. That was the scale or the number. So 2.2 is the strike, and we'll have a staff to keep up with strikes, even though we're keeping up with them. The public safety group and administrative group are keeping up with them, but, so we make it a civil ticket, so they don't have to be a sworn officer to write the tickets. That would be our new staff members. The staff members, just so y'all would know, would be in the administrative side of the world, not the public safety side of the world. So, it would be $500 per ticket. And if you're found guilty in front of the judge when you bring your ticket in, then you would have a strike. 3 strikes, you lose your, not only your $1,500, but you lose your business license for whatever time y'all decide, a year, 12 months. The other strike system we had was you would lose them for it's a rolling 12-month time. So you get your first strike, second strike, third strike, and then you lose your ticket from that 3rd strike on for 12 months. So that's kind of where this is. It's kind of a combination of that, but everybody says, let's do something different with the strike system. So making it a civil offense and a $500 ticket that kind of gets the owner's attention that they need to do something. With
Is
that-
there a fine to the renters themselves?
No.
There's no fine.
Just the owners. You can't imagine trying to keep up with renters who's doing what, and then the owner's got to depend on them for a strike.
Well, could the
Well, they would get
owners,
a-
could the owners put in a deposit and take it out of the deposit if they do get fined? I'm not a rental person, so.
No, I wouldn't. We wouldn't. We don't want to try to keep up with that.
Well, I'm saying,
Because-
but on their side, so I guess, so Joe, I'm asking, anybody in the real estate agency?
Are you talking about make the renters?
They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, make them pay the
They
500
can do
if they
whatever,
are.
they can do whatever they want to do, but
Fine.
we're not in the process of doing it.
Okay,
I do, just because the issue has come up, and I think everyone here understands, but $500 is the maximum fine the city can impose by state law. And fines do get essentially doubled, but that's state fees getting added onto them.
Yeah.
So that is a ceiling, $500, cannot go above that.
We can't write a ticket for more than that, but if you go
That's
to
what I'm
court and
saying.
you get judged guilty, then you're going to get court costs on top of that.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Rich.
Yes.
We're on the strike. Yeah, in some way, shape, or form. I mean, once we get it into an ordinance form, we can argue, this much, that much, whatever. But in general, yes, I think that's one of the meat and potatoes. You don't want to punish everybody, you want to punish the troublemakers.
And Mayor, do you want to just take this in context of the $500 ticket, or also the 30-minute response time and the minimum of 3-night advertising?
Well, we need to talk about, I just thought about the 3-night thing. I think the 3-night thing at least has to be separate. The 30-minute time thing, we'll talk about in just a minute.
All right.
So that was just on the strike policy.
Yeah.
Okay, rest of it will come up, yeah. Go ahead.
Mr. Parker?
So with regard to the strike policy, I agree with everything you said, with one exception, that the first strike remain a warning so that the property owner can work with their property management company to potentially avoid subsequent strikes. And then there was also a recommendation on the part of the short-term rental committee. I know we'll get into these details later, but I would like to see it brought back. It was triggered by a resident complaint. His home is next door to a short-term rental. We had the language dogs at large. So we're very focused on noise and trash and parking. In this particular individual's case, and I'm sure there are other examples like this across the island, it's a dog-friendly short-term rental property. The dogs would frequently get under the fence, into his yard, terrorizing his own animals, had to call public safety multiple times. So properties that are pet-friendly short-term rentals, they have to control their animals. If not, in my mind's eye, that's a strike.
When we go to the ordinance, I want to make sure you put that kind of language in there. Dr. Howden?
Okay, so I just want to be clear what I'm exactly responding to. I believe that there needs to be a first strike to the homeowner. Nothing to do with rentals. I believe the amount of 500 on the first strike is reasonable. Is that what we're voting on?
We're not voting.
We're not voting.
Just how you feel about the
How you
strike
feel about the
policy in
strike
general.
system,
Well, that's-
$500? Do you think that, you saying that you think that $500 is okay?
That's, yeah, because there's been some debate about the actual amount. So am I debating that now? That's on my own? Or am I saying, as
Right.
written, it's fine?
Mr. Farley?
I'm in favor. The only thing I worry about is the conviction is to strike, and it would seem, Joe, in that court, are they pretty liberal about giving continuances, especially if you're represented by an attorney?
Yeah,
Because if that's true, then when you had your third strike, all you'd have to do is continue the court case so that one strike would roll off, and then you'd go ahead and plead to the other. You'd never get three in a rolling 12-month period.
I would imagine that's possible.
Well, we could just always put in the system, if, of the strike system, that if you or your attorney asks for a continuance, then your 12-month rolling period is frozen at that point in time.
Have to figure something out.
Yes, that's a good point.
There are a lot of moving parts on these
Yeah.
issues that I mean, I don't know if y'all want to go in, but there's going to be a lot of drilling down on issues like that.
You'd almost have to tie the strike back to
I
the
can promise
date. You'd almost have to tie the strike back to the date of the offense.
Yeah. I mean, you got to decide, do they wipe the slate clean when the house gets sold? You know, that's another issue that I've come across. There's going to be a lot of things like that we're going to that's a detail that we'll just have to
This
address.
isn't gonna be our last
Yes,
work
I'm in,
session.
I'm in
No.
favor, I'm in favor. 2.0.
Mr. Ellis?
All right, recommendation 2.2. I'll go along, we'll see how the votes shake out on the first thing, the $500 civil tickets. The second part of it,
We hadn't got to the second one yet, hang on.
no, listen, there's this 3-part. The second, add if local agents cannot appear on site.
We hadn't got to that yet, hang on.
those separately.
Okay.
Mr. Grooms?
I'm going to tend to go with Mr. Barker's thinking of a warning at first to give the client or the owner a chance to fix the problems. If there's a problem, to work it out with their agent or with themselves if they're still running it. And I'm okay with the $500 civil.
Okay, so the second one, the way it reads now is if local agents cannot appear on site, respond to the emergency within 30 minutes, it would be a strike. That really needs to say if local agents will not answer calls from the city, as most of it going to be from the public safety department within 30 minutes and at least give them a plan of what they're gonna do to resolve their problem, that would be the strike, not just appear on site.
So is that changing in the other section when it comes up?
We'd have to do it all the way through the same.
So they're going to answer a phone call, not to respond in
They
person.
they have to answer the phone call and then tell them what they're gonna do because, as I've said to other people who.
If the little situation is going to be a different outcome of what they got to do.
Yeah, so as I've said to people who wrote emails, so the city is responsible for answering emergency situations. We are. But when we put the fire out, the fire's out, we go home. It's your problem for your renters, your problem for you to take care of your renters in your building or whatever is damaged. So now, when we get there and we say, you got a real problem with a lot of noise and a big time party, whatever, you need to come handle these renters, then you got to let us know, like, I'll be there in 45 minutes, can you assist me to handle the renters?
Okay.
You know, that kind of thing. Not that you have to be on the scene within 30 minutes, because, you know, hey, I might be in downtown Charleston, you call me and I can't get back because of traffic in 30 minutes. But I will answer the call.
Yeah.
Unlike some places.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Grooms, with that caveat,
With that caveat, and again, just to kind of punt with that, you know, there could be an idea of if an eviction is warranted, then they would need to appear to evict them, because I know that our
Yeah, they have-
PSOs cannot evict them. So just keep that in mind, that if we
Yeah.
were to add some details to say, if an eviction is warranted, then the agent or owner would need to be present to evict them within, I don't know what the time frame would be to do such a thing, and it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen.
yeah. And you know, you would think if they're having that bad a problem, they want to evict them because they don't get two strikes.
Well,
per
right,
night.
yeah, they're ready to go. But again, something worded around that. You know, a phone call versus appearing on site obviously is the better portion of that. So I don't have an issue with that. I think if the owner's on site, then, you know, the owner's on site. I don't think there'll be an issue there. In most cases that I've heard from that are owners on site don't have issues. It's the event houses or some of the big, you know, rental places that are out there. But again, you got a rental company to handle it. They usually handle it pretty well. But I've seen. I do have a question though. The contact emergency information is kept by the city. Is that correct?
When they fill out a license, when they fill out a license for a short-term rental,
The owner or the right.
the owner or whoever their owner's representative is, they have to provide the contact person, good contact information, and good postal information.
Okay. And when they apply for and that is transferred to public safety.
No, it will be transferred to the new department.
Right now,
Right now, is what I'm
Yeah.
when
saying.
someone
Yeah.
does the rental registration, public safety gets a copy of them.
Okay.
They-
So-
yeah,
so
they
you
ha-
get a
they
copy.
have it right
So
now.
if they do a license and then they switch real estate, it's on to the owner to change who their contact is, not
Right.
City Hall. Okay.
Right.
So make sure we put it.
We won't, there's no way City Hall would know if you changed.
Right, and City Hall's closed at night, so you can't get the number to call. So,
All right, Mr. Ellis?
Okay, so similarly, I agree with you about the, having to show up 30 minutes on scene. I think it's, might be unreasonable in certain situations. Maybe even the call could be a little bit longer, so that's where I'm at right now. Don't mean I won't change my mind.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Just for clarity, with the new introduced, what you said, that within 30 minutes, if I am the homeowner, I have called, responded, with the city and taken responsibility. I don't have to be on site in 30 minutes. So I agree with that. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, I agree with
Pretty
that.
close. Mr. Parker?
I agree. It should be structured such that you are reachable by phone within 30 minutes and required to appear within 90 as necessary.
I'm good with the restructure of it to where it's contact and not arrival. I would say that the city doesn't need to get into evicting people. That's on the property managers to do. If they be evicted, we can't tell somebody they need to be evicted. That's on them. So that's not something we have to worry about. Are we gonna talk about this again when it comes up on another paragraph? Because the only other thing I do want to say about it, about the list, about the local agents.
Yeah,
We're gonna hit it again later on. Because later on it says they have to be like a licensed property manager.
yeah, I got a different.
Okay, I'll wait till later for that. That was my only other comment about that guy.
Okay, so we put in here, if advertising for 3 nights, for less than 3 nights, then it's a ticketed offense. Take out the 3 nights. If you do false advertising, which is what that's basically what this was getting at, is false advertising. So let's just use the words false advertising. We have had cases of that just this year. So if you're false advertising, using false advertising, then that's a ticketed offense. So if we catch you falsely advertising a 2-bedroom house for a 4-bedroom house with sleep 15, then that's gonna be a ticket. That's what it is. So just take out the burger dot and put false advertisement, and that would be the answer for that. So, Mr. Rich.
Yes. Which one falls advertising?
Yeah.
Fine. Sorry, I thought.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to count now nights, I think that's fair.
I didn't say.
Not yet.
You can count nights later on, but I'm just saying, we wrote that in, we shouldn't have wrote that in there that early, because the night counts later on.
We have a separate
Separate.
recommendation to limit the number of nights.
Oh, okay. So okay, false advertising, I'm fine with that. So yes.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
I don't support regulating the number of nights.
okay, well, how about false advertising?
False advertising, I support that.
Mr. Grooms,
False advertising is lying, cheating, and trying to work the system, so, write them up.
okay.
There we
So,
go.
now we're getting down to the hiring and administrative staff for enforcement, managing licenses, rental registration, administration of rental ordinances,
What number is this?
2-3.
2.3. We already did that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, 2.4. Oh, yeah, 2.4, excuse me, is, you have to prove that you have paid up all your accommodation taxes from the previous year before you can renew a license. Mr. Grooms,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Dr. Houghton,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Rich.
I'm all for that. My only concern is that accommodations sometimes take a while to catch up. So it might not be the past year, it might be the previous fiscal year or something. We'll have to watch our language on that, just depending on the accommodation tax structure. Because if I'm getting
whether we
licensed
get
today,
it
you
back,
don't know if I pay, we don't have to pay it yet for, the last couple weeks. So it's just whatever you just run by Lee and whatever the dates or terminology we need to use.
okay, so at 3.1,
Mr. Mayor, can I just, before we leave issue 2, can I just ask for clarification? What are we doing with recommendation 2.1 about the 4%?
what do we do?
Can we come back with or just entertain a motion when it hits the floor to reduce the 4% from 1,000 to 500?
I'm sure when it hits the floor, when the ordinance hits the floor, it'll be reduced already because, there's all over the map about
Okay.
that reduction.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And it might be less than 500.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so clearly marked parking spaces, you have to provide a site plan with the parking spaces for the number of cars that you're gonna rent your accommodations for, to show that you can accommodate the car. Mr. Rich.
I like the concept of the idea. The only thing that worries me is when you have new places being built, you'll have zero green space. They'll eat up as much interior driveway as possible. So that's kind of concerning. You know, they'll have their one driveway going in, and all of a sudden it'll open up to nothing but a concrete front yard, or gravel front yard, instead of anything, and you're just gonna, that's what you're gonna see when you drive by.
And
I mean,
90% of the places, you can't park all over the front yard, because usually that's where your drain field for your septic tank is.
Right, but you see what I'm saying, just, it tends to think you'd have too many parking lots going in instead of landscaping or yardage. And the number, I know once we get into ordinances, that's when we can kind of talk about that one, but like the number of spaces, how are we gonna determine that? So I have a lot of, I'm okay with some sort of a parking, you know, parking spaces you have, and identify them for your residents or your visitors so they know where the parking spaces are. I'm not sure about how many we can require and all that. I'm leery about all that.
Well, we talked about bedroom count, so if you got 2 bedrooms, it'd be 2 cars. 'Cause you can,
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Once we get into the actual wordage, then I might be leery about that when we get there, but the overall concept, I'm good with.
Okay, Mr. Barker?
I too am supportive of the overall concept. I believe the appropriate ratio should be a minimum of 2 parking spaces for a minimum of 2 cars, or 1 car for every 2 bedrooms.
Okay, so I'm not worried about numbers, ratio, or anything. What it says is the mayor recommends the city require clearly marked parking spaces on site for rental properties upon issuance or renewal of license. Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
I don't know. I haven't made up my mind about that. I don't know that the government should start telling people too much of how to do it, when to do it. Maybe a loose structure of, you know, there'll be ample parking, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it shall be this dimension and this sign that, you know, and I don't agree with that much detailed of government regulation.
Okay, Mr. Grooms?
In general, I'm supportive of that. I think there's some details that need to be worked out. I think somebody made a suggestion about a plaque, or it would designate number of bedrooms, number of parking spaces, whatever, onto the house. I'm not in favor of signage or front stop bumpers. I don't want the place to look like the Isle of Palms. Not a good look, and it's hard to cut a grass when you got those things in the way. You got to trim them, isn't that right, Eddie? And that's a lot harder to do than cutting the grass versus a yard. And again, I think Folly's a unique place, and we don't want signs. I think there's a song out there, signs everywhere, sign, and the less signs we have makes it a better place to live. So that's my opinion on it.
Okay. So we're down to 3.2, and this will go back to what Mr. Rich was asking about earlier, the requirement that we have a more robust verification of local agents, and we said be a property manager in charge or a realtor's license. Or since this has come up, you can be a licensed lawyer, which is automatically in the state of South Carolina able to sell real estate or manage property or whatever. And you know, if you're the homeowner and you live 2 doors down and whatever, you can respond or answer the calls within 30 minutes and take charge, then, you know, an owner that can do that kind of answering. If you're living in Buffalo, New York, and you have a rental house out here, I don't believe you can do that. You might answer the call, but I don't believe you can make sure that things are taken in charge. So that's kind of where this was from. This was to get back to what we said. You have to have a local contact to handle problems at your short-term rental. Mr. Rich.
I don't like they have to be a property manager or somebody with a realtor license. I think as long as they have a local contact, I'm more open to. Now that we've changed the earlier suggestion into a response time, and they can tell, you know, folks how to plan, I'm open on that as long as it's managed properly. I would say that maybe that's something that should almost be in the strike system. Almost something I was going to bring up later. You know, like you can have a local agent answer the phone first, but if your house has any issues, then here's, in addition to your first strike, here's your next set of, you know, things that you need to do. You know, I was going to bring that up later with some of the nuisances, like installing the noise monitors and stuff like that. If you get a strike for noise and you keep getting it, then you're going to have to do, you know, further improvements than most people. So I know that's all over the board.
Mr. Barker?
So I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, insofar as what you said, but what you said and what is in writing are at least two slightly different things. So I would be supportive of requiring properties be managed by someone with a South Carolina property manager in charge, realtor license, attorney, as you described, but also if they're local resident and they have one or more short-term rentals that they manage, they should be allowed to do so as well, and that doesn't appear to be here.
No, I said we have to add owners to that list.
If they're local.
Well, yeah, if they could meet all the other criteria of answering the calls and taking care of the problems, right?
Okay, so I agree with this, and what I've done is require properties to be managed by someone with a South Carolina property manager, realtor license, local contact, homeowner. That's a yes for me.
Okay, Mr. Foley,
As amended, yes.
Mr. Ellis,
So I don't support the requiring property agents to be able, or require properties to be managed by someone with a South Carolina property manager. I don't support that. I do like that you're changing it, that so the the homeowner can also be the agent, right? So you're not really requiring them to have
no,
an
that's
agent.
just a list of what you can do.
So
Okay,
I mean, with that said, with 3-2 changing to not require him to have a South Carolina property manager, I would support 3-2. But I don't support it if you require him to have to be a property manager.
I've heard from several residents that own properties and rent them out, and they don't seem to be the problem in all this. So I would support owners running their properties as long as they don't have any strikes against them and they do a good job with it. I think that's fair. And of course, the real estate agency for or someone approval for anybody who is outside the area. So yes, supporting it with amendment, as amended.
okay, so 3.3 is talking about, and this comes from short-term rental committee, I'm pretty much just about what they did, saying that we needed a more flexible notification system quicker than certified mails. Now, we can use emails and we can do faxes or whatever, but the certified mail is one that actually counts. Now that we're going to talk about going to civil fines, we can scratch this because you immediately know that you got a ticket. I mean, that's going to be your notice. So a flexible notification system. I think we can just leave flexible notification system in there if we want to until we get through the process. But if we might have to, I don't know, Joe, do we still need to send them a certified letter saying you got a ticket? You're out of town, you got a ticket, you weren't here to hand it to you?
You know, that's kind of an open question. I don't know that there's a real definitive answer on how tickets should be served, but I've generally taken the opinion that, just handing them at the property should suffice if it's handed to the agent.
Okay, so that goes back to the 30-minute response time of getting a response of the person showing up. So you have to be able to take care of your problem. Okay. So I think we just kind of leave that out there right now, leave it alone. Other than the ticket will be your notification. Okay, make the city noise ordinance easier to enforce. It's pretty easy, but it's all over the place. So noise monitoring is hard, and it's, as I've said this many times, it's very hard. And when you try to use a machine, dosimeter, to register noise, you're not only getting noise unless you're inside the building of what's inside the building, you're also getting all the ambient noise on the outside of the building. So if I stand down here in front of City Hall with a meter in my hand and a motorcycle goes by, it's too noisy. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, I don't know how many variations of the noise ordinance Mr. Rich has been in or Mr. Ellis has been in, but it's like
Well, then
I think we got the noise ordinance down where it's at, and I think the violation of the noise ordinance with the advent of, staff members being able to write civil tickets for, that would have to change too. The ordinance for the noise would have to change to be a civil violation. It's not a civil violation right now, so we'd have to change that ordinance to make noise a civil violation, so.
we gotta bring that back up.
Yeah, we'll have to put that in the ordinance form.
Thanks.
Well, just change it from criminal to civil and go with it.
That would also probably prevent people from asking for a jury trial,
Yeah,
which is a delay
right.
thing.
So that's another one to put in there. Whoever, don't forget that one. With the
Well,
continuance.
changing it will
With the
fix,
continuance. yeah.
changing it will fix that.
Okay, so, the recommendation for the, 3.4 was, come from the short-term rental committee. And that, I don't know, I left it in there. As Mr. Rich said, if you have a violation, maybe we say one way you need to take care of your problem is a noise meter that can be monitored off-site. So you can take care of your noise problems ahead of time. We just said we have to change the noise violation from criminal to civil, and I don't know. That's the noise. That's the noise making it easier. So what do you think?
I'm fine. After a strike, definitely highly recommending it. And then, it's really on them. If they want to keep getting strikes, fine. We would definitely highly recommend you add these. From what I understand from talking to people, they're pretty inexpensive nowadays. So if they care about their property enough, they would get it. Less we mandate, I think the better. It's your property, do what you want with it. If you can monitor yourself, go ahead. If you get another strike, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't enforce mandate. I do know one place, 5 or 6 houses down from me that did that, so they could manage noise. And they read it off site. So when they see us getting bad, they show up.
So one guy, their whole company, they have it in all their houses, and they can pull it up, and it's got them all. And he said it really wasn't. That wasn't really terminated. It's really not expensive to do it.
Okay, Mr. Parker.
I believe they should be a requirement for all short-term rentals. We did speak a good bit about this as a member of the short-term rental committee. What it achieves, among other things, is it puts the responsibility on the homeowner and not the neighbor to complain to public safety, and for public safety then to enforce the law. So if you are the homeowner or the property manager and you get an alert on your phone that there is noise on site that is too loud, you can respond to that before it becomes a public complaint or nuisance and such. So yes, I agree it should be a requirement.
Just for clarity, to be fair, the noise ordinance, the number and all that is the same for anyone. If it's me or if it's a band, that's the rule, that's the law.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Mr. Farley.
Yes.
Mr. Ellis.
I don't support making the noise monitoring software a mandate.
Okay.
I think they're good for people to. When I had my stuff installed, they can set your volume to where it won't go past a certain volume. You can do that. You can preset your flat screens and stuff. But no, I don't support the government mandating it.
Okay. Mr. Grooms.
I would agree with the changing it to civil violation. I would make it a highly recommended monitoring software. I don't think a forced mandate is in order unless it's for the cars that go by with the big boom boxes and the Carolina squats. I would love to see one.
Okay. Now we come to the 3 nights. So this comes from the short-term rental committee, talking about recommended a minimum of 3 nights per rental registration. another one we left in untouched, unscathed. And also, well, that's 3.5, so, let's talk about that first, then we'll talk about the next one. So 3.5, minimum of 3 nights, Mr. Grooms.
Again, I've heard from several people on this topic. The majority that I've been hearing from, would be okay with a 2-night. Some people said 3 nights during the summer hours and then 2 nights in the off season. But, even Airbnb, I believe, has recommended or discontinued doing 1-night rentals to some issue problems. So, and again, 1-night rentals have been a history of problems throwing parties. So, I'm okay with the 2-night. If we need to go to a 3-night during the summertime, I could lean that way. But 2 nights, I think, would be a better solution.
Mr. Ellis?
I don't support the government telling property owners how many nights they can rent their property.
Okay, Mr. Farley?
Support a 2-night.
Okay. Dr. Houghton?
Okay, so I really feel, and I have a lot of faith, that once we get through this and have all this accountability, I'm not sure we need to define the nights. I'm throwing that out there. However, I do think 3, if I came on a Friday, I would say 2. But honestly, I feel if we have responsible people and we, at the end of the story, I don't really need nights. But that's where I am right now.
Okay.
Start with 2.
2, okay.
Ditto Dr. Houghton. That was perfect. That was exactly what I was gonna say.
Oh my
That's
God.
my answer.
All right.
Stole it.
Is that not earth shattering?
Yeah. We will get through 3 anyway. No, we almost did 2 hours. So if y'all speed up your responses, we might
10
get through all of
minutes.
them.
I don't know how shorter I can.
Oh my God, this was fun.
All right, so
Cake night,
recommendation
so it's
3.7.
3.6.
Oh, excuse me, 3.6. Yeah, I'm down one.
Where's that in your file?
So this requiring that a building have a certificate of occupancy before you get a license to operate. We require everybody to have a certificate of occupancy before we give you a business license. So this is a business license, so that's where this comes from. Mr. Rich?
They get one of those when the house is first built, correct?
Correct.
So why would they need another one?
No, you can't be, I'm gonna build a house in 6 months, I want a business license. You have to have a CO before you can get a business license to rent,
Yes.
to rent the house.
Yes, so gotcha, yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes, however, I do believe we need to accommodate properties that are currently under construction but won't be completed until following the ordinance's effective date.
They still gotta get a CO before you put anybody in it.
Well, if we
This doesn't put a cap on it.
Yeah,
It's
if we end up-
before you get a license, I have a CO.
if we end up in a place where there is a cap, I think it is
Oh,
important.
well. Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
3.6 with a cap, I would say no. If you have a cap, you're forcing them to get the business license. Without the cap, maybe, we'll see in the discussion.
Mr. Grooms?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, 3.7. A third-party inspection for all rentals, short-term rentals, verify that property meets the 2018 Property Maintenance Code. All first-time licenses will be issued after a documented inspection. This includes smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, fire extinguishers, the number of bedrooms, the number of parking spaces, et cetera, that you're structurally sound. And this is not the city, this is a third-party group, just like building inspectors. So that's what this is. Mr. Rich, I'll start with you.
All right, try to make this quick. I've heard that that's gonna be extremely impossible to get a third party to sign off on a maintenance code and structurability and things of that sort. I think it should be stripped down. I like what you have written as far as, the fire extinguishers, make it more like a fire inspection that every other business has to have every year. Make sure you have your smoke alarms, your fire extinguishers, the doorways lead to something. This isn't a doorway that leads nowhere. you know, basics, you know, safety stuff like that. But I don't want to get into structural. I think that can also fall back on the city. And I really don't want to go down that path.
Well,
So we're stripping inspection down.
it
on
won't
basic
fall
fire
back on the
inspection.
city because it's a third party person saying it's good, not us.
I haven't had one email where they can get that. So I'd like to strip it down. I don't think it'd be that harsh with fire inspection, basic fire inspection. I'll do.
That's fine. Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Dr. Houghton.
Yes.
Mr. Farley.
Initial but not annual.
Okay.
No, I don't support the inspections, initial or continued.
Okay.
But free market,
Mr. Grooms.
All first-time licenses, yes.
All right. Almost there, guys. 3.8 recommends the requirement of the septic tank capacity documentation must be part of the SDR permit application. So if you have a septic tank and you have a short-term rental permit, then you need to go back to DHEC, make sure that you have a copy of your approved septic tank system, septic system from DHEC, which you would have had to have before you got a CO for your building. This is for anyone who's not on sewer. Mr. Grooms,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
maybe. I don't like it really.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Dr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Mr. Whatever your name is, Rich.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna make it. The number of bedrooms supported by data from Charleston County, you have to show that you have 2 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms. The Charleston County Tax Assessor's Office is assessing your house. My house assesses it for 3 bedrooms. So you have to prove that when you apply for your license for a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 2-bedroom house. Mr. Rich.
You know, out of the thousands of emails that we read, I haven't heard one person bring this up. But I mean, I'm fine with it. I can't foresee the problems because nobody has brought this up. So I mean, I'm good. It sounds good to me.
Mr. Barker?
Yeah, I believe this ties back to false advertising,
Right.
so the answer is yes.
Dr. Houghton?
Yes.
Mr. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
No, if you have a pull-out couch in the living room to sleep to, that's gonna be confusing with the documentation with the Charleston County.
It's not a bedroom.
It's not a bedroom, but Mr. Grooms?
Liars, cheaters, and people trying to work the system, so I'm gonna say yes.
So, recommends developing, this comes straight out of the short-term rental committee too, recommending a robust communication plan,
Yes.
provide stakeholders with all the information, and it'll be, I mean, I don't know how much more robust it could be than what we do or what you say we're gonna do, but we'll put it
right now.
Put it on the website, put it on the city Facebook, put it on, I don't know, plain, but pulling it behind it.
Yes.
Mr. Grooms,
Yes, again, with an addition of possibly doing a streaming or a video that runners could look at through our city website, a standard one that they'd have to go, I don't know if you wanna make them go on and look at least have it available to say, hey, here's some good things for you and here's recommendations, and just go over them a video, actually tell them and do an audio and visual versus reading, because people don't read everything, but they will watch a video
sometimes.
sometimes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes, yeah, I support it.
Mr. Farley,
I think staff will figure out a way to do it, yes.
Dr. Houghton.
I completely believe in communication, but in addition to that, I think there needs a lot of education and clarity, and I totally agree with this. And would rely on all of us, the community, us, staff, everyone. This is our document, it's a community document, and so I couldn't agree more.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
And Mr. Rich. See there? You didn't have any faith we'd make it, did you?
We're gonna play a game. How many times can you say clarity in one meeting?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because I want clarity.
That's it.
Counter going in the bottom.
We will,
98.
take a minute for, if anyone needs to take a break.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Jump right in.
That was amazing.
Moment of clarity. Oh, boy.
Yep. I'll find another word.
You can't now. You already got you. Thanks. You got you pinned down.